Good. Thank you. Thank you for the intro. Good morning, everybody. And thank you, Founders Bay, for having us today. While we do wait for maybe more people to join, we do want to keep it conversational. So I want to invite everybody to share in the chat where they're joining us from or what their role is so we can get to know our audience a little bit better. Again, we do hope for a pretty interactive conversation throughout the webinar today. You cannot hear me very well. I see somebody saying that. Let me see if this is gonna work better. I'll be a little bit louder. So my name is Melania. I'm a PhD applied mathematician turned data scientist turned AI transformation strategist and founder of AI for All Solutions, where we help executives, practitioners, and investors get grounded into what AI really does and translate that into realistic, human-focused AI transformation strategies and for their products and businesses. And with me today, I have Ayanna, my trusted collaborator.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ayanna, as Melania said. I'm also a PhD, and I've spent about a decade building ML systems and leading applied AI teams. Over my career, I've worked across everything from statistical models to generative AI, partnering across the aisle to deliver measurable value. Along the way, I've learned some of the hardest parts of AI are everything but the model, basically. So I'm looking forward to share some of my lessons learned. Thank you so much for having us here today. Now that we've done our introductions, hopefully our backgrounds show exactly why we're here to be here with the Founders Bay community today. The community is full of founders, operators, and advisors who are already making tough decisions about AI. You might be evaluating new tools, responding to customer expectations, or thinking about where AI fits into your business. AI may not be your primary focus, but it's becoming part of every leader's role. One thing we've learned is that successful AI adoption is the technology plus making good decisions, building the right processes, and bringing people along through the change. You don't need to become an AI expert. You need enough understanding to separate hype from reality and make confident decisions and implement AI responsibly. That's what today's session is all about. We'll unpack some of the biggest AI myths, look at what successful adoption actually looks like, and share practical information that you can take back to your teams.
And since we promised conversational, let's start with a warm-up. I would love for you to share what are your most favorite comments, buzzwords, anything swirling around AI these days. Drop that in the chat. And while we wait for people to think through that, I'm gonna put Ayanna on the spotlight. What is your favorite, most cringing favorite buzzword?
Oh man. I think something that is really, really misunderstood is how when people say AI, they automatically think something like ChatGPT. We have some more other foundational models out there, but AI has been here way longer than you think, and it will be here much longer than we predict. So that's one of my biggest pet peeves.
I would say mine is so that's a second very close one to mine. Mine is AI is just smart. It really bothers me because people tend to then look at AI as the hammer and everything around is a nail, when in fact it should all start with, okay, what would the right problem be for AI to be a solution? So it's the smart part comes into the orchestration of things, not necessarily just the technology. I see people are not courageous enough to share, so we'll continue sharing more about our own sort of favorite buzzwords and claims about AI. As I already said.
Should I start since it was my pet peeve? So the one of the classics is AI is synonymous with ChatGPT or Claude, despite all the technologies under the umbrella of AI, including things like machine learning.
And of course, when you hear all those vendors, either at conferences or on LinkedIn, that whatever they built, that agentic platform that is only theirs, it will simply be plug and play into your database. You don't have to worry about any preparation whatsoever.
Here's another good one that you can build these very complex solutions, maybe being proposed by vendors with only a team of five leading 100,000, who knows how many AI agents.
Yeah, that's the way to do business growth with agents. Another one on business growth is that the solution for more revenue and business expansion is just more AI in the products, whatever that means.
Yeah, so since we made this bingo, another one of our favorites we mentioned is here. So this is the idea that AI can think just like a human being can right now, at least.
Any of these that resonate with our audience, drop an emoji. If typing is potentially a little too long, then an emoji too. Which one resonates with you, or which one you hear day in and day out? That will also be AI does the thinking, human do the feeling. Okay, that's a really good one, Ellen. Thank you. We will actually come back to that during today's session. Speaking of, whenever we interact with tools, and we just use as an excuse, because that's what ChatGPT said, so it must be true.
Yeah, I see some more myths coming in. We'll come back to that. But another one is that our AI is just simply magic. It just works. You just point it to the problem and it fixes everything.
That actually links really well to what just Sherry shared. Just ask Claude.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oh, this is another one. AI will fix everything. It will solve all our business problems. It will know exactly what to do, fix any sort of broken process we might have. There's no thinking needed.
And lastly, but not leastly, this one I think cuts pretty deeply to a lot of people, which is this fear that agents will be replacing all of our jobs in 2 years, tomorrow, 5 years, who knows, but that there's a real job insecurity on the horizon.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big one. We'll come back to that in the webinar today. Sadly, we cannot go through all of them. Each of them will unpack different parts of organization misalignment, organization leadership opportunities. They each damage sort of success in a business in a different way. But we chose, and we will unpack the worst offenders, can explain why they spread, what their practical damage really looks like, and empower you with the right framework, so that as you go through your social media conversations or people you work with, you can wade through those discussions, really bring the facts versus just the myths and the misconceptions. And we'll walk through these, we'll bring these to life through real situations, challenges that we've seen with clients or in conversations with folks at various AI events. Again, comment in the chat as you hear us converse on these topics, ask questions, say if something does not resonate and you have a different opinion, we would just welcome the conversation. So the first myth we're going to start with.
Yeah, so this is the one I just commented on. It does have pretty broad potential implications. That's why we thought that it would be one of the best ones to start with. So just like Melania said, we want this to feel conversational, also kind of allow for more kind of insights through specific situations that people have experienced. So Melania, do you want to go ahead and share something that we've heard from clients?
Yeah, definitely very, very often hearing this one. And it usually the scenario is, well, my company just announced that everybody should increase their AI usage by 70% this year. And yes, that does feel like they're just trying to figure out which jobs are not needed, how to replace those jobs. So I become really, really worried. So should I and my team be worried? What's the right interpretation?
Yeah, so like I said, definitely this client's concern resonates with a lot of people. It's a really, really common concern. So what we'd like to do is kind of take a step back and think about the two kind of points that are coming across in this question. So the first one is, well, why does it feel like AI is replacing people? And two, what are we actually seeing inside of organizations today? Because they're two different things. So first, let's start with why this fear feels so real. There are usually three things feeding into it. First, we just see all these headlines connecting layoffs to AI. It does get a lot of engagement, so we see a lot of like high profile publications sharing these links, and then also, our colleagues maybe on LinkedIn. Second, it seems like every week there's another demo showing one person using AI agents doing what used to take an entire team. And third, everything is moving incredibly fast. When you put these things together, it's easy to conclude, well, I mean, it's obvious my role is going to be next, right?
Yeah, especially when you see those demos that claim, well, an AI agent can do the work of five people. That literally means that companies are really thinking of they need just a few humans and then an army of agents.
Yeah, it's definitely a reasonable conclusion, especially when people think about, oh, well, what's the cost of a person versus an agent? But this it assumes that people can be replaced, that jobs can be replaced by AI. In practice, that's actually not really how organizations work. The mental model I encourage people to use is this. So the reality is that AI operates at the task level, not the role level. Think about your own job. How many different things do you do in a week, in a day, in a morning? You answer emails, attend meetings, you analyze information, you make decisions, you coordinate with other people, and you solve unexpected problems. These are just some of the things that you do. Some of them are repetitive, some require judgment. AI tends to automate the repetitive pieces first. So, in this case, the AI could draft emails for you, could summarize and format meeting notes, could search information for you. It could even generate first versions of reports, but that still leaves a lot of work that depends on experience, context, priorities, and collaboration.
And you have a lot of that experience from your own data science life, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we can make this a little bit more concrete by putting it into a workflow or a similar workflow that I'm very familiar with. So let's imagine that you're a data scientist, or maybe you're like me. I actually have to admit something here. I was a really big skeptic of AI, specifically generative AI, because a lot of the important things that I needed to do were just ridiculous to consider automating even before a few months ago. We tried, trust me. The early stages were not great. But as the technology has matured, I have noticed the models and algorithms have improved to the point where there's some low-hanging fruit that has been really helpful. So, for example, before AI, a large part of a data scientist's week might have been maybe writing SQL queries, cleaning data, debugging pipelines, formatting reports, preparing presentations. They're all necessary tasks, but they're not the reason why the company hired a qualified data scientist. And it's personally why I felt more comfortable automating these systems in my own workflows. As AI takes over more of these execution heavy activities, a data scientist week starts to look different. Instead of spending hours creating the first draft of an analysis, maybe you're spending more time interpreting results, discussing trade offs with stakeholders, and deciding what actions the business should take.
But well, of course, we've seen how quickly AI evolved, so we can just imagine that it will keep getting better and better. So wouldn't this setup kind of be just temporary? Wouldn't it eventually take over judgment as well?
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend like it's not going to get better. It's definitely going to continue getting better. But organizations don't just hire people because they can complete individual tasks. If they did, I would be very scared. Um, Obviously, why people have this fear today. But in reality, organizations hire people because someone still has to decide the problems that matter, whether the output is correct, how it fits into the business context, and what happens next. Those responsibilities don't just disappear because making drafts becomes easier and faster.
That is a really good point.
So, what usually changes first isn't headcount, it's how people spend their time. Remember, instead of spending 3 hours creating your first draft, maybe you spend 30 minutes reviewing one. Instead of searching through 20 documents, you get the information quickly. Instead of manually organizing notes after every meeting, because that is a ton of time, they're already summarized by the AI during the meeting. The repetitive work is what shrinks, the decision-making work is what grows.
Okay, so if we, as you were describing before AI, the bottleneck was on doing all these sort of repetitive tasks. Now that AI does that faster, creates also the first drafts much faster, what becomes a bottleneck in workflows and in business flows?
See, that's actually where the shift in bottleneck is very interesting. So before AI, it was in producing the work. Now it's the actual judgment. You can create thousands of different outputs, but someone has to go through that and actually understand, are any of these worthwhile? Are they useful? Is the analysis correct? Does it answer the right question? Is the recommendation even useful or even on the right track? AI will make the answers, but humans have to actually evaluate and prompt the right answers in the first place.
And that's definitely very, very human
Yeah.
activity to do. So then as we look at expectations, is not necessarily I'm going to be doing less or I'm not going to be needed. It's what do I do with my time now that AI took over all these repetitive tasks? Is that a good question?
Yeah, so think of it as the value moves away from producing every single word yourself, and more instead you focus on the better decisions and doing that faster. So a concrete way of doing this could just be helping stakeholders reach alignment in meetings faster. It seems like a small task, but actually can have huge value in the long run.
Yeah, I'm a little anxious here and getting very quick through the clicking. But in terms of how do we see that in practice, or is the whole framework we just discussed just mostly theoretical?
No, no. So as you previewed, we're already seeing it. So across software engineering, design, marketing, customer support, and analytics, teams are using AI to remove friction from their workflows. So we have engineers spending less time writing boilerplate. We have designers iterating faster on their designs. Analysts spending, uh, more time interpreting things and less time gathering information. Yeah, especially meeting preparation.
Indeed.
So what's changing is the work inside the role, not necessarily the existence of the role. And in many cases, the expectation becomes that one person can take on more complex work because they're spending less time on repetitive execution. Sorry. Think of it another way. How many of you, and I hope this doesn't strike a nerve, but like how many of you have faced pressure to deliver something very quickly? Usually it comes from the top down. And so what ends up happening, because it's really easy to do, is just to focus all on execution. We just have to work faster. We need to put more hours in, more people on it. Maybe that'll allow things to be successful faster and resolve the concerns from leadership. But in reality, at least in my experience, what the project actually needed was either better alignment or better direction or better goals. Um, I would suggest that the similar thing is happening here. In hindsight, as I've at least experienced, you'd probably think that the project that needed to go and have more results faster probably actually needed to spend more time on the thinking of the project versus just producing of the project.
Yeah, very much aligned with my pet peeve of like, what is the actual problem we would like to solve? Let's think to that before jumping to AI.
Yeah, yeah.
So coming back to, is AI gonna replace me? Should I keep asking myself that question because the technology keeps evolving?
Yeah, so just take a second and think about what are the most useful questions here. So, what are the parts of the job that actually require me? These are usually the things involving, as we've been mentioning, judgment, creativity, communication, prioritization, stakeholder management, and accountability. Then you can ask, what repetitive work can AI help me stop doing? That's where most organizations are seeing value today and how people are future-proofing their roles. And finally, where is my expertise needed more? This will help you shine in this new age of work as we adapt to AI being in our lives.
I like this framing because it kind of gives me the specific milestones that I can think through. Okay, what my day looks like, what's repetitive, what AI can take over from me, so that I actually spend more quality thinking time in my job. So what should I walk away with from this besides the questions?
Yeah, so we threw a lot of information at you all, but um, remember this. AI doesn't replace roles, it replaces tasks. That changes how the work gets done, but it doesn't eliminate the need for specialized and qualified people. The people who thrive won't necessarily be the ones who use AI the most either. They'll be the ones who learn how to combine AI with the uniquely human parts of their job, making decisions, applying context, and solving problems that don't have obvious answers. Yeah, so that was a lot. We threw a lot at you. We would love it actually if you could start kind of commenting and engaging in the chat of some of the questions, comments, or concerns. Maybe these are things you've been afraid to say in meetings or online. Um, we want to be able to kind of come back to that as we have the opportunity to answer questions. There should be a recording available, yes. But yeah, go ahead.
We'll move.
Yeah.
This was definitely probably one of the most kind of emotionally loaded type of myths we wanted to debunk early on because we see it more and more around us. The next one is also a dear favorite of mine that, well, definitely we wanted to address this with you today. What should the scenario be on this one? um the let's say, if we also saw that in the chat a little bit. So because we are using AI every day, it definitely feels like it understands us, it talks like us, it is really smart, and sometimes it actually explains things better than people do. So oh, you are muted. And let's see. Pramanya, can you unmute Ayanna, please? I don't have
Yes.
the right.
Okay.
There
I'll
we go. Sorry, I didn't realize I couldn't unmute myself.
okay.
Um, so yeah, for this one, the scenario that we've heard and have dealt with is, people who have been using AI almost every day now. And sometimes when we use the LLMs, there's this feeling that, it's gotten so much smarter over the past year. Sometimes it feels like it even explains things better than people do. So it almost feels like it's even understanding what I'm asking. It must be like almost human-like in its reasoning, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is definitely a very, very common reaction. The sounding and reacting and understanding like a human, it is the misconception that we want to, that is very easy to develop and we want to address. Especially when these tools remember the context of multiple conversations. So that continues to enhance the misconception, or it answers in complete sentences in a very confident conversational tone. It at times even sounds empathetic. So it's very easy to walk away thinking, oh, AI actually understands me and it's very natural. Therefore, it must be human. And the main reason there is because of how polished these responses are. You ask a question and you get back immediately. Well structured answer, well written, very thoughtful. And because human intelligence is our only reference point, we naturally project that human thinking onto anything that simply just communicates well. And especially on top of that, when we hear in social media phrases like reasoning models or collaborating AI agents, the tech jargon itself simply encourages this image of there's a human brain behind the system. It's all conscious and all that. And of course, just to make things even more complicated, we name our chatbots. So it feels even more like we're interacting with a human. So we kind of stop thinking that it is just a software. And we start interacting with it as we interact with our friends and coworkers. Um, and yeah, that's kind of what is the what created this myth.
Yeah, it definitely feels very like it's almost like personalized. Like and I think, it almost seems like it really is understanding me. I mean, it's been talking to me for so long. Like you'd think that, it was starting to adapt to my needs or something like that.
Yeah, that's the bit that makes interaction with generative AI so interesting. It is generally useful, as we talked already throughout this webinar. There's a ton of information that is suddenly at our fingertips. We can learn a lot, which is a great thing. But an intelligent system doesn't mean it thinks like humans. And in my highly eager clicking behavior, I already kind of put in front of you the what is under the hood for AI. So AI is simply just math that learns familiar language patterns that it has been exposed to in all the texts that existed in the digital world. So that's the mental model that I would like to share with our audience today. That basically generative AI learned from language patterns available in great and huge amounts of text. And those patterns simply just predict what a good response looks like to a specific question or prompt, given the context of the conversation. That is the foundation of a large language model.
Can you give an example?
Excellent. I was just going to say, so very simple sentence. The CEO asked us to. Now, given our human experience, judgment, things that we learned, we kind of have already a kind of expected fill for the answer. But for what the large language model actually experiences, it has a potential list of answers. Pick flowers, raise a glass, upgrade the software, write a report, evaluate AI tools. And it needs to pick from this list of potential answers what is the most likely, most correct answer that fits with the question in front of it. And of course, the context of what a CEO is, what does a CEO do in an organization, and all these micro decisions happen really, really fast, but also they happen thousands of times before the answer is actually given. And that's why Gen AI actually can write, summarize, explain things very, very comprehensively. And it can also be a great brainstorm partner. And if anybody would like to guess what the completion of the sentence is, it's probably quite obvious since we're talking about AI today. But this is actually how LLMs function under the hood.
So when you're saying that it's reasoning, like what does that actually mean?
That is another good one, because the moment we say reasoning, that is just so human-like and is very hard to penetrate through that specific jargon and misconception. So reasoning is simply just breaking big problems into small steps and learn patterns, because again, that's what AI is. So another pattern that it was exposed to was the idea that solutions come when you take a very complex problem and you break it down into smaller steps and be able to analyze those smaller steps given the simpler context. So it's seen this in a number of different situations, and it has millions of examples of how humans summarize, therefore it can do that very well. How humans compare different statements, therefore it can do that very well. How humans analyze, write, explain, break down problems. So the model simply learned those patterns and can reproduce them in new situations. As an example, so say I prompt my favorite AI tool, summarize this customer complaint and draft a response. So that is the complex problem that the tool has to deal with. So what does it do? Also, what kind of helps fuel the misconception is very often the first thing that we see back from the AI tool is it is thinking. So it is not thinking. What it actually is doing is going through these simple steps. It processes the data. Again, the prompt itself is just an input. The complaint is input text to the system. It recognizes the various language patterns, so it can identify tone and style, again, because it has seen a very large number of pieces of text with specific tones and style. And then extracts the keywords to understand what's really important in that specific complaint, and then generate the statistically likely summary, because it's all under the hood, just a big prediction engine. And then generate the statistically likely response with the inferred tone and style. And that's why they can produce all this language, and why this language actually feels remarkably intelligent and still generates an answer that feels very convincing, but it can actually contain a few factually wrong details.
Okay, that would make sense. So it's like taking all the like information and the training or what have you, like using that all together to make it sound so confident even when it's wrong.
Yes, and that is the biggest damage that this particular myth creates, is that we perceive coherence and fluency in the language as correctness. And when the language is very fluent, our brains just simply take that fluency for something more than what it is, correctness. And it is a big trap, because, well, if it gave an awkward answer, first thing we would do would be questioning that answer, right? But because it's all very polished, carefully put together with detailed explanations, our brains just naturally assume that's carefully reasoned, that's why it's intelligent. But confidence, it's definitely not evidence and verified facts, and that's why we see hallucinations. And I'm pretty sure everybody in the audience already has heard of these. Definitely the fabricated legal cases, which look really coherent, very nicely put together, but they didn't even exist. So again, a testament to the fact that the tools create text. They don't necessarily know what they are creating that specific text about. Incorrect citation, and of course, several conceptual mistakes that appear on particular explanations that they give. And as we encounter this more and more, probably it has happened to you as well, as you interview somebody. And they sound really, really great in the interview, and then as they join the team, they really struggle on the job. It's a similar situation that happens.
Yeah, it's hard though, right? You spend all this time talking to it and then it like learns from you even sometimes. So like, should we just trust it less?
I would say let's think about it a little bit differently. So AI, let's not treat AI, generative AI, as a full oracle. It is an exceptionally fast collaborator. It helps us generate ideas, summarize information, draft documents, explore possibilities that we might want to do or would not be able to do directly on our own. And because accuracy matters, still absolutely have to verify the output, especially when the problem is very challenging. We have to be able to ask questions. So always ping the outputs to understand where things are coming from, or get more specific about about certain elements in the answer. Provide guidance. So kind of teaching the tool how to look for facts, look for the right references. And of course, we influence how the tool actually evolves. So that influence is still essential to how the tool gives the output. So is the goal itself is not to just fully trust the system, or completely mistrust the system and have that complete skepticism. It's more about where we still fully agree that human influence is essential. So to put all that together, AI is fluent but not aware of what actual concepts it describes. It is incredibly good at generating useful language and solving many complex problems, but it is predictive. It doesn't understand what it creates an answer about, but it does provide a very polished answer. And the real value in interacting with AI is, of course, it combines the speed with human judgment, and that's where you get the best of both worlds.
Thank you for all for putting some comments and questions in the chat. I think what we're gonna do is I think we might move on to the next myth, but definitely keep the comments and questions coming in because I think once we kind of get through the third myth, we can kind of maybe check back in and see if there are any like burning ideas and thoughts just in the sake of time. But thank you, keep them coming. So we're on our third. So um,
This one
do
definitely feels
you want
quite
to go ahead?
personal. uh,
Yeah.
because every time I bring a challenge with leadership, may that be over a slow process or messy data or any sort of manual workflow, somebody somewhere will ask, well, have you tried using AI? And it really feels like AI is the hammer and everything becomes the nail.
Am I allowed to start getting like quarters or nickels every time someone says that? Because it does actually come up a lot, and sometimes I do take it very personal myself as well. It's understandable why people like logically come to that kind of question, especially because we have so many, demos online showing that AI is almost effortless. You can type a prompt and seconds later you have an answer, a report, or even working code. It's easy to start believing that AI is super easy, super magical, and it can solve any business problem you throw at it. Part of that comes from the experience of using tools like ChatGPT. So you can ask a question and immediately get a presumably useful response. But again, remember that second myth. Um, and then you have other situations where there's prototypes being built in minutes, posts about someone launching an app over the weekend. It makes it seem like it really is super easy to use AI.
Yeah, exactly. And when the team is asked to provide their efforts evaluation for a project to be completed and they say months, then of course people start wondering, well, AI is supposed to just speed things up. Why don't you just use AI?
Right. So the assumption becomes that if AI can generate the work quickly, implementing it should be just as quick, but that's where the reality starts to look very different. And I also want to let you in on another secret. Usually these people are very qualified people who know how to use AI. But in reality, AI rarely operates by itself. Take a moment with me and think again. Think about onboarding someone new to your company or your team and kind of go to this person and say, hey, can you generate a report on this KPI that needs to be due tomorrow because we've been thinking about it the past few quarters? That would be kind of ridiculous, right? Expecting them to be productive on the first day, no one does that, right? So
Would they
in this
even look
case,
for the
like,
information? Yeah.
right, right. They need time. They need to be exposed to the right information, know a little bit more about the team. So why do we expect AI to be any different? Um, Especially because we expect it to fit into existing systems, your existing business processes, and your data. And you don't expect to change those right now. You want to start with what you have. And so you need to give it access to the right information. It needs to have guardrails, and it needs people to validate the output, as we've been saying. And it also needs to integrate in how things are already working, because again, the context is usually do it within the system that's already happening.
Yeah. And most often the systems stay there, just
Yeah.
AI will just be sitting on top of it, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely that is the expectation. So here's a mental model we can use for this. So the reality is that AI amplifies whatever you place it into. So if your new process is well defined, so let's say we talk about two scenarios of companies. You want to click to the next slide? So we have company A, which has clear workflows, clear, clean data architectures, and clear owners. If you add AI, what you'll find is that, yeah, in this case, you're probably going to have really good results. You're going to be, in this case, 20% faster and therefore having very obvious business value. But if your process is unclear, like company B, Let's say your workflows are disorganized, your systems are inconsistent, the ownership isn't defined. AI is not going to fix those problems. In fact, it usually makes them more obvious and problematic, or as we say, 100% more chaos. That includes the people side of the org too. So if no one agrees on the workflow, AI isn't going to magically create one. If there isn't clear validation steps, AI won't invent them. If communication between teams is poor, it just helps everyone move faster in different directions and probably even making the problem more worse than it was in the first place.
Is this why AI pilots look just amazing in a demo, but when you actually take that to production, it's just pulling hair?
Yeah, so as someone who's built POCs before, building a proof of concept is often the easy part and usually addresses very predictable use cases. But in reality, once you move into production, that means thinking about numerous parts of your system, right? So you're thinking about security, governance, monitoring, reliability, user adoption, integration within existing systems. It goes on. These challenges are not caused by AI, they're just simply the realities of deploying any technology at scale. AI just tends to expose these challenges sooner.
So then instead of going back and asking, well, can AI do this? Or let's just do this with AI, what kind of questions should we be asking?
So, some better questions are, what needs to be true for AI to succeed here? Do we even have good data? Is the workflow clearly defined? Who owns the outcome? How will people use the results? These questions usually have a much bigger impact on success than choosing between one AI model over another. That's why successful AI projects usually spend as much time defining workflows and validation steps and ownership as much as they do choosing the model itself.
And that's again where the human judgments and all the critical thinking, so human attributes come to play because the organization is so much more complex than just one clean demo.
Yeah, so this is why people like me, machine learning practitioners and data scientists, have been so frustrated with ChatGPT equaling AI, right? We've been doing this for years. It has always been the more harder critical thinking parts of the job and collaboration parts of the job versus running the model in a notebook, right? So in summary, when someone tries to convince you that AI just magically works, remember that AI is not a magic wand. It doesn't fix broken systems or replace good processes and habits. It just amplifies what's already there. When organizations take the time to make clear workflows, have reliable data and data systems, and clarify who has the ownership in different tasks, AI can do wonders and accelerate incredible work. But if those foundations are missing, all they're going to do is expose the gaps before it solves them. It's the same thing if you want to think about it. It's almost like when people throw more people at a problem, it just makes it more messy and problematic than starting with the right things in the first place.
So we shared quite a bit of what AI really does and it's under the hood and how to be able to cut through a lot of the hype that exists around AI. Let's maybe do a roundup of all that. So how to reframe how we think about AI.
Cool. So let's just run through the myths that we've gone through, right? So the first one is that AI will replace my team. Let's rethink about that, and instead think of it as how AI changes tasks more than roles. For myth two, we talked about how it's easy to feel like AI can think like a human can. And in reality, we want you to think more about how it can actually be more important to recognize how it's pattern matching. It's math that can make things put pieces together in a way that makes us feel like it's reasoning. But these outputs require evaluation. And lastly, myth three, that there's this idea that, or myth, that AI just magically works, right? And so instead of thinking about, putting a magic wand to something, think about how a lot of the problems that people encounter using AI start with the organization, right? So it's not the technology that's the limiting factor. The organization is where you need to start and kind of evaluate, okay, where are the broken pieces in the pipeline? How can we optimize this for our use cases? So putting these together, you can see what's really changing. Of course, there's other myths, but these are kind of the more critical ones. AI reduces the amount of effort spent on execution while increasing the importance of judgment and the clear value of processes, communication, and decision making. So now we've gone through a ton of myths, some misconceptions around AI. We just want to leave you with one specific concrete example of what good AI application looks like, because it's not just enough to say what's wrong with it and where the problems are, but what actually looks good when you can use it well. So whether you manage a data team, fund companies that have one, or are the person doing the work, this one's for you because the gap between AI demos and the magic around that and what actually changes is where the real adoption pain comes up.
It does. And actually, it links really well to a question that Ellen just asked in the chat. Kind of if things are messy, what to do first? Because we just discussed you cannot just drop AI in it and kind of wish for magical things to happen. So this particular case study, very real in discussions with a FinOps leader at a large gaming company, looking at how to cloud cost AI. So getting from thousands of cloud bills into cost savings. This is for all the online gamers there, parents of gamers will definitely understand the more time you spend in the game, all this actually translates to gazillion dollars on the infrastructure on the game developer side. So for a large gaming company that has hundreds of games, that definitely means millions of billing records every month. And all this with each activity, every time there's a live event in the game, each promotion, everything gets recorded in the system, but each game studio has their own system and they don't necessarily communicate, but the billing data is recorded there. Everything gets paid to the cloud provider, and without anybody having the time to inspect this much data, there simply isn't a better understanding of how to think of cost-saving opportunities. And that's where the sort of leader of the finance team at this company started. How do we get from this so much amount of data to being a little more optimized in terms of cloud spend? I know we are running out of time, so I'll try to get through this a little quickly. The reason why cloud bills are an interesting use case is because in those millions of records that exist, there could be duplicate charges or unexpected infrastructure costs, especially with live events when the normal gaming traffic is significantly different than the day-to-day. But none of these will kind of be on their own large enough to attract attention. But collectively, they could add up to millions of dollars in savings. So in order to get to that system, they definitely had the data. They could build a cost intelligence sort of layer, but they just didn't have the capacity. And of course, you might think, okay, let's just set up some rules. It will get us there. And in fact, that was also the question I asked them. And they said, yes, we did. And it failed because the various cloud contracts pricing across the different game studios was significantly different. The pricing models were different. The context of the specific spend was different. So the rules couldn't capture all that. And what they did was, in fact, they didn't run to an agentic vendor. They didn't think about, oh, we need to replace the team because they are not able to see where the specific savings are coming from. But they started with a very, very simple question. How can AI help our finance experts see more and see everything that they currently cannot? So they built these two agents, one focused on scanning for anomalies, cost spikes, and flagging those patterns to humans to be able to understand what is interesting. And the second agent existed there to offer plain language queries. So the finance team, infrastructure leaders, game studio leaders would have a very easy way to ask questions and get a quick answer on which live event generated this specific charges. And in this way, expertise stayed human. But there was one important step that happened before. As I mentioned, each gaming studio had their own billing system. So that meant a lot of disconnected systems. And back to myth number 3, where when chaos exists, AI simply exposes it more. Here they focused on bringing all that together, connecting the system, standardizing the data formats, standardizing the data processing workflows, and next to that, setting up the guardrails, making sure that the agent will not necessarily take a decision without having that human in the loop to verify that that is the correct action to take. Various guardrails on how data gets shared and what type of decisions are taken. And all that was put in place before the agents were actually deployed and started working in production. And just to round this up, they didn't just flip the switch overnight. They had the agents kind of work in shadow mode, make sure that they refined the guardrails, they tightened the workflow standardization, they cleaned up the data preparation or the data standardization, enhanced the full context that agents were able to extract information from. So it became AI was not just a solution anymore, it was the full system. And I would say that's a big learning lesson to take away from this particular scenario and actual real case study, because at the end of the day, that success of that project was not from the technology itself, deploying that, was how to use AI to amplify the human expertise and gonna get that at the center, have the system support everything through the various people that were involved through the data processes and overall workflows that got created, got cleaned up, got connected for AI to enhance the value that they were able to extract from it.